Hello and welcome to Thursdays on the Stoop. We are Blue Stoop. We're a literary arts organization serving the greater Philadelphia area. And today we have Better Worlds Through Radical Imagination with Zoe Williams. And Zoe Williams is a community educator, tabletop game designer, and screenwriter. It specializes in creating new and innovative worlds. So thanks so much for being here today. Take it away.
Hi everyone. I hope Zoom isn't eating my microphone anymore. So if I all of a sudden get low, just let me know. I'm Zoe, as Julian said, and let me share my screen because I made a whole PowerPoint. I spent far too long, admittedly, on this, and that's okay. That's the beauty of work. So this is Better Worlds Through Radical Imagination. I probably don't need to actually explain who I am anymore because that literally was already done. There we go. I've got four questions that will guide today's lecture, I guess is what I can call it. Who, what, how, why, and beyond, which is not a question, but you will see. Number one question: who am I? It's already been said, but I am a community educator and screenwriter. My pronouns are they, them. So if you're talking about me outside of this, please use they, them. And if you struggle with it, I don't know, look it up online. You'll figure it out. I promise you, it's not that bad. I know things. I got my master's degree in higher education policy and student affairs, which is like a really long, not that fancy title that says I studied colleges for 2 years and I studied kind of how students move through the world, especially marginalized students. That was my thesis. And I'm tired, but I remain hopeful, especially after today. I just got off work. Um, Radical imagination is one of my favorite political theories to kind of cope with the everything of the world, and helps me kind of bolster my writing to engage with a wide variety of topics because fiction, nonfiction that allow me to just how do I say, always kind of remain present in a sense, and you'll get an understanding of that as we keep talking about this. So I'm going to start off with writing prompts. I'm told that people love the writing prompts. So let's take about 5 minutes, and you can choose any one of these three things. If you're a fast writer, you can do all three. But if you're like me, I would choose one and just my favorite and just kind of go on with it. So yeah, take about 5 minutes and pick one of these. So, what is your definition of freedom? If you had a magic wand, what problem would you solve without hesitation? And what does an ideal world look like for you? Let me just grab a timer on my phone. About 30 seconds. All right, and time. If there's one thing you might also catch about me, not only am I a former educator, I am also an improv artist. Love a little bit of free writing. Would anyone like to share? I also wrote. I realized that I could also participate in the activity, so I could even share myself if anyone doesn't want to feel brave today. I understand not wanting to. Or you can put it in the chat. It's okay. So I'll say what I wrote. So I wrote two things very quickly, as I had only sticky notes and a pen that's way too big. So for this number two, if I had a magic wand, what problem would I solve? I was very easy. I was very simple. I put racism. And while it seems not silly, it's like very simple. Like, yeah, I would. I would. If I could, I would. I'd be like, no more racists. We're done. It's over. That for me is a dream. I would love to not wake up and have to experience racism in any capacity. And dreams are, as I'll keep continue to talk about, a core foundation of cultivating radical imagination. And for the first prompt, my definition of freedom is everyone having safety, healthiness, not healthiness. The word I used was healing and joy without the kind of oppressive systems dictating and pushing down on us. And those are very, I'll say those feel kind of dense and heavy often, but essentially, I believe that people should be happy and people should be like able to experience joys without, all of the bad things that are in the world. Maybe it's all idealistic, but that's the point. That's what I love. Anyone else want to share? Very okay if not.
Yeah, hi. My name's Elliot. Brand new to Blue Stoop, but looking forward to getting more involved. I jotted down my response to the second prompt being solving want and greed. Um, getting, I guess, like also getting rid of greed first would then mean no one would go wanting for further resources and care and empathy as well. It is not made up, it's not a new age word. And I think that would snowball to solving a lot of other problems um, facing the world as well.
No, I love that. That's that's genuine. I feel like that's the only word that I can really like use. So that's very in line with the themes that we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else? We can go once, going twice. Okay. Thank you all for writing. If you took the time to write, and if you did, no worries. Oh, I have to click. So the question, what is radical imagination? So the definition that I tend to use right here is radical imagination is a revolutionary concept that asks us to examine the systems that make up our world and consider how these systems shape our dreams, aspirations, and even our imagination. It prompts us to imagine a world beyond those limitations. And that's foundationally not an easy thing. I will be the first person to say that. It's why I love talking about this thing continuously and constantly. This is like big picture pie in the sky, taking theory and then putting it into practice. This will not be an easy thing. That's what I want to start the baseline there. So I do not expect anyone or everyone to be, I guess, down with this immediately, or even like be an expert in this. I'm not even an expert. I learned about this in grad school and I'm still learning like 5 years out. When oppression is the norm, it is unlikely that a person would imagine liberatory freedom. And I use that, I should put that in quotations because I mean that as a very specific thing. Um, I call this, and also researchers call this, a state of having a colonized mind. We are likely to dream the concept in the context that we only exist in. But what does that actually mean? I think the next one actually. What if? So let me give you a few examples. The questions that I asked earlier, freedom. I believe, and I've talked to people, that a lot of people, or even safety, let's stick with safety. I was actually having a conversation with work with someone about this. Um, he was using the idea that like safety is, his idea of safety is having a gun, like just going to be playing with that one. And we were talking about it, you know, with the recent events in the news. We happen to be talking about that. And safety for him was coming up in, well, I believe that I want to have safety in owning a weapon. And that was not something that I was like engaging in terms of like, oh, that's right, that's wrong. More of the idea that what he believes safety in is in violence. And for me, that is something that I would not align with because of the system that we live in. Violence is something that we are ingrained in. I didn't judge him for this. Violence is something that we are ingrained in every single day. So to me, it is not a wild idea for someone to say, well, then why would safety not be in holding violence? If that makes sense. It's kind of a little bit abstract, but I'm trying to like put it at that baseline. And we're going to keep talking about this. What if is the important question here. And to engage with, we'll say, the concept of radical imagination in, let's say, violence, we could very deep down the line ask the question, well, what if safety is not rooted in violence at all? And that is a question that I will likely ask him next time I see him. I was only at work for him for 30 minutes. having political conversations at work is a minefield, but that is separate. But that question, for me, is where radical imagination begins and where it engages with the reality that we live in, with you, and it will engage with the art that we make. And what if, we'll say in quotations, is my favorite start. Let's see if I can, yeah. Let's say, I'm not going to read this whole quote. It's kind of thick and beefy. I'll give you literally a minute to look at this. But these are two writers that are very integral to the kind of radical imagination theorem. I have a feeling people read. This is a lot of political talk, like academic words, and that is not the way in which I like to fully deliver this. But I do like to put the context in history. In fact, I'm going to go back to what if. Nope, wrong way. Does anyone have any questions? I just want to like preface that before I keep going on. I don't want to like keep hammering you with like text, block text, political thing. I want this to kind of like, the next slide is like, how does this actually pertain to us as writers? It is a lot to chew on. No question is a bad question, even if it feels silly. Okay. So how does this relevant to me as a writer? Because we do not exist in a vacuums. Our dreams do not exist inside of vacuums. We write what we know, and we reflect what experiences we see in the world. If we do not rebuild our colonized imagination, then we risk building colonized worlds in our writing. Writing with a radical imagination is an act of excavation. We sift through our ideas, we evaluate them, and we refine them to create something new. And I have another writing exercise that I think will kind of synthesize all of this into like the physical, the literal, because a lot of this is theorem, and I like to bring it into real life. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. The tabletop aspect, if anyone here is familiar with tabletop games. If you're not, Dungeons and Dragons, that's the easiest one. That's like the most popular that people know. Where you build out a world, or even you take a world that's already been built, and you play in a game, and you roll some dice, probability, and you have a lot of fun role playing with your friends. Even improv. And one of the reasons why this is a very like important theory for me is that I see very literally what happens when people take any old idea and run with it without kind of like taking a step to think about it. Something that comes up constantly, and it happens in every facet, is like fantasy racism, or even like allegorical, like, or parallels, I'll say parallels to like real life people. And this happens a lot when it comes to like rhetoric, like when you're writing bad guys, when you're writing like what you imagine people are. Stereotyping comes up heavily and constantly in writings, in ways that like you don't even think. And it's that inauthentic replication that makes me so passionate in radical imagination as a like tool for writing. Because if we do not try to rebuild the colonized imagination, then we risk rebuilding colonized worlds. And I hope that is kind of like, I hope you all can like feel that, or like understand that as like the in the short term. Let's go to the next one, because I know there is a writing, and this is just another quote. This one is much shorter, and I'll give you 1 minute to read, or I can come back to it. I think this quote speaks to the duality of making art as a marginalized person in a world with a very real and harmful systems over top of us. You know, if you're a woman, you have to continually deal with like misogyny, patriarchy. And how do these things come up in the writing that you do, whether you are like trying to write against that, or whether you're not thinking about it and writing towards it? If you're a black person, how does anti-blackness come into play in everything and anything in your writing? And what is the push and pull between these two things? Am I making something to for escapism, we'll say, or am I making something to push it back against oppression? And I think that question in is relevant in everything that we do. You know, I feel like people love to shit on escapism, like constantly. But the reality is like life is hard. Life is hard, and we need time and energy. We need time to recover. And I think that is the beauty in like escapism, in fiction, in books, and reading, just in letting your mind go somewhere else. But I bring up radical imagination constantly. I bring it up. I have this lesson about radical imagination to warn, to let people know that while there's nothing wrong with escapism, do be cognizant of the fact that our dreams are not pristine in the ways that we might think. They are not untouched by the systems that we have over of us, like, you know, not misogyny, the patriarchy, you know, racism. And that is like a hard thing to kind of contend with. You know, it's it maybe even feel a little bitter in a sense. You know, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean like what do you mean like my race cars aren't free of patriarchy? That feels like a almost nonsense thing, but like I see a hand raised.
I would love to know how we can kind of apply these thinkings to our writings. Like, do you maybe have like an example or something we could
I
go
do
off of?
actually. So how do we actually do it? I love when questions lead into the thing. Yeah, all right. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, so cool. This is a lot of stuff. So we have an exercise. The next slide is actually me saying, let's try this. So we can do this right now. So let's take maybe 10 minutes. What time is it? Yeah, let's take 10 minutes. And I want you all to pick, we'll say, a relatively simple premise. We're not going to think too hard about what that means. Like something easy, something that you know. Go to a go-to. And I want you to start by writing about it. Take a premise and just, you know, Jack and Jill went up the hill. And I don't actually know the story of Jack and Jill. I should not have started with that one, but you get the picture. And I want you to take one of these questions after you start with the premise. How do we define XYZ? We'll say, I should have put a blank there, but how do we define this? Say you're writing a romance. How do you define romance? What are the common traits of a romance story? Who typically decides the common traits of a romance story? What do I like about romance? What do I dislike about romance? And then we'll say the explicit last question is, how do I flip this? And we ought to take some time to kind of, and then we can talk about it, or I would like to talk about it. About 10 seconds. All right. Finish up. Okay. So I hope that was semi fruitful. I would love to be, to those that are finished, I would love to be a guinea pig in this regard to see if we can make this into a more practical exercise. Um, so I'll start with myself. So I started, my premise was two people falling in love at an, two people falling in love at an aquarium. And I would love, and you can put this in the chat, and I'll read it, and we'll do a Q&A. We'll kind of, my intention is to do this in a little tennis fashion. I would love if you all would ask me some of these questions, or questions that you kind of are inspired by, to interrogate my premise of two people falling in love at an aquarium. Mhm. I'll give you a minute. Mhm. I knew myself. How do they realize they're in love? Ooh, that's a really good one. How do two people realize when they are in love? I'm gonna use my improv brain. I did write something similar to this. I think two people realize that they're in love after a when they hit a connection. I'm trying to be very specific. When they hit a connection with each other, when they realize that, oh, this is the person that I want to spend all my time with. I'm in love with this person. Oh, this is the person I want to spend all my time with. Oh, I care about them more deeply than others. I want to kiss them on the mouth. Sure. Any questions about what I just said, or any follow-up interrogations about what I just said? Do they realize it together? If I was writing a story that I felt was realistic, I would say no. Because I believe, me personally, that people feel feelings at their own pace. So my two random people in an aquarium that are eventually going to fall in love with each other will one day realize that they are in love. We're going to turn this into a prompt. Will one day realize that they are in love with each other because of how much devotion that they feel to each other. And they will realize it separately because honestly, that's just how I think people are. Any follow-ups to that? I hope a one-man improv show. Do they both either see it? Oh, I love that. You're my type of thinker. I'll say not at first, or even maybe not at all. I think a conflict of this story would be how they both have different ideas of what love might be. or what they believe love might be. Maybe one person is raised to think that romantic love is the pinnacle, while the other is searching in their heart for something more platonic, something more than platonic, like in that like gray area. Oh, the ball is rolling. So now I got two people who meet in an aquarium that will one day fall in love with each other, who will realize it at separate moments, and then they will also come to realize that what they desire is a little fundamentally different. That's like three steps deep. I'm loving it. I think this would be a really good story. Is there any other questions that ruminate in your mind as these things are being said? Because I feel like the ball, I feel like it's rolling. Or shall I give up and let someone else be a sacrifice of radical imagination? The answer can always be no. What is important about the setting of the aquarium? And do they both have the same feelings about aquariums? What is important? Zoe at first doesn't know, but the answer could be they both grew up in Baltimore, because the Baltimore Aquarium's like sick as hell, and they both have a love for like of aquatic fish. I think that is a special place for them both separately. Maybe today is the like aquarium day. That's not, I don't know, aquarium holidays, like the 15th anniversary of the aquarium in this story. And we'll say they both have similar feelings of the, I'll say yes, they both have similar feelings about aquariums. They love it. It is something very important to them. Oh, juicy, tasty, love it. Anything else? I'm eating this up. I really like this. I'll leave it for going once virtual typing, because typing takes a minute. Going twice virtual typing, because typing takes a minute. Going a third time for virtual typing. I don't know why I'm saying virtual typing. Typing is one of those things that's universal. Is it universal actually? I'll think about that later. I'm going to move on. But thank you all, genuinely. Thank you all for those questions. Those are really good questions. And maybe I will write a romance after this about two people. I know nothing about fish. I probably shouldn't. I'm going to personally stay in my lane, but I like the vibes. I hope these are questions. Feel free to screenshot them. They're not like the things that would, lead you specifically just for radical imagination. But for me, these are good starting questions. And I think that, talking with people, like at least one other person, having these questions being asked, or you asking these questions of another person, is a really good exercise in kind of cultivating and asking like those deeper questions, or those questions that make you think, well, what are my opinions on X, Y, and Z? And do they have to be this? Because, yeah. Oh, try it. We just tried it. And beyond. So as you write, ask yourself such questions as we did, and I can like screenshot this, or you can screenshot it. I can go back if anyone wants to screenshot it or write it down with more time. Ask yourself these questions. Do not stop interrogating these influences that dominate the systems on our art. I feel like I wrote that sentence badly, but let's say I am writing this story about the aquarium. The question of, I love that question of, do they both see it as romantic love or other forms of love? The idea that other forms of love exist. And that is like that's huge. That is so huge in terms of being able to like start as a basis of your writing, because it allows you to for you to think, well, do I think there are other forms of love? And the answer can be no. You can be, I think you this I'm not telling you to like change your opinions on certain things. I think it'd be great. I love an open mind, but like the reality is knowing yourself is the most important part of this process. It is the foundation of having imagination and saying, well, these are the things that I believe, and I can actually uplift my own beliefs in writing through questioning it. It's Q&A, it's back and forth, it's tennis. And I think that is one of the most, if that is the like 50 minutes like thesis that I can give you for all of this, is not to like go on this like huge intense journey of like, well, does it need to be like, don't like, this isn't supposed to be like a self-judgment thing. This is introspection in writing. And I think that's like a good title, introspection in writing with radical imagination. What is it that I believe? Why do I believe these things? And how do I either use, confirm, or we'll say deny those biases? And I think that's the like streamlined version of all of the like political like textbook sentences that I gave you earlier, is that like our dreams are so important that it is also important to like kind of like take care of them almost like a plant, if that makes sense. I have horrible analogies because I think that if we understand our dreams, we are able to remain hopeful and also like care for them in ways that give us like a political power, a political hope. Because I think the world is a little not bad. I think the world is getting hard, and these things get harder every single day, and we need ways to like motivate ourselves. And honestly, most importantly, just talk to those around you. Like, get a buddy. Like, have these like sorts of conversations in your writing. Like, writing is a very solitary exercise, and I don't think that's ever going to like change necessarily, but I think it is important to like have dialogue and community and to keep pushing these sorts of things with each other. And I think that should be it. Here's me. This is I am Radical Zoe on all sorts of things. That's my email in the middle. And if you like are interested in my website that I need to revamp, it's also there. I think that's a lot. That's a lot of time. Yeah. Any questions or comments or concerns, or you never want to see me again? Honestly, that's valid too. You're like, Zoe, nah. Thank you all. I hand it over to Julian.
So thank you so much, though. I really enjoyed that. I think everyone else did too. I want to share a few links and other things with you all. I'll paste those into the chat in a moment. There's a feedback survey right up at the top where you can let Zoe know what a great job they did. There's a link to our fall classes. In particular, I think if you enjoyed today, you might enjoy Magical Imaginings with Andres Gonzalez Bonias. And that class is going to be like about the intersection of magical realism and speculative fiction. You also might enjoy Poetry Is Still Not a Luxury with Gabriel Ramirez. That's a poetry class that frames the whole curriculum around a particular Audre Lorde essay. So I think that one's going to be really fabulous too. We've got a lot of great options, including those. So definitely check those out. You can also subscribe to our newsletter and be sure to check out next week's Thursdays on the Stoop. The premise is going to be writing yourself as a character in memoir, but in a way that is flawed and complex. So that's going to be really fun. That's with Erica Vanstone. And you can learn about that at that events button. And at the last but not least, if you'd like to support free programming like this one, and you're at a place in your life where you have a few extra bucks laying around, you can pitch in at bluestoop.org/donate. Every dollar actually does make a difference. We're really small, so it goes a long way. Thank you again for your time and energy. We'll get this recording up on YouTube sometime in the next week. But I appreciate you all and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.